right? Not fun, okay? But it requires them to change in a fundamental way. It moves them from being dependent into independent, but it takes time, it takes patience from us, right? We gotta teach them that. So not only are we trying to teach content, we're trying to teach responsibility, okay? And it just so happens to be that way. Okay, this is Pratt's model of readiness to learn. I just thought it was a nice graph. It kind of ties back to Grove's stages of development, where, you know, if you're a low, they need low self-direction, or sorry, low need for direction and a low need for support. They're pretty much a self-directed student. They know what they're doing. They're ready. Just let them go. But if they have a high need for direction but a low need for support, so what are we now? We're probably more of a facilitator, motivator at that point, right? So you can kind of look at this as like a stage 4, stage 1, and 2 and 3, kind of flipping back and forth here. Again, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, what happens if they're like super self-directed, but they're stage 1 and they're super dependent? What am I supposed to do with this student? How do I work with them, right? But identifying that is going to be a big challenge. Agreed? So how do we identify that? That deals with conversation. That's the only way we'll be able to find that out, at least currently. All right, so their orientation to learning, and I think all of you know this part, it's all about the experiences that they're having in your classroom, getting hands-on, really figuring out what needs to happen. Okay, that concrete learning experience, simulations, case studies, really working with. Okay. You might want to do some observations and reflections, some class discussion, maybe some formation of abstract concepts where you're sharing content. An idea of that is like doing a jigsaw where you give this group, you learn this material, this group, you learn this material, and everybody come together and share with what you know. You'll create masters in different little levels, and then together as a group, they'll master the content together. Rising tide raises all ships kind of concept, right? And then testing implications of new concepts and new situations, okay? Great, I think an idea of that in the mathematics world is 2 plus 2 is 4, right? Now take that into fraction concepts, or excuse me, multiplication concepts. 2 times 2 is just 2 plus 2 again, right? It's 2 plus 2. It's taking a concept, just applying it into a new way. And I think we all do that, right? And then for motivation purposes, think of yourselves, okay? Your motivation to either be in this class or to go to the next one or to go and read a book or to do something like that is well, you want to feel like you're successful as a learner, right? I want to be successful. Nobody goes into class and be like, I'm ready to fail, right? Nobody does that naturally. Volition, feel a sense of choice in their learning. You chose to be in this class versus another one. You choose to read this book versus that one. You made that choice. Nobody told you to come in here. You made that choice. So that's part of your volition, your value. You want to learn something that you value. And whether you value it or not, that's going to help. And your enjoyment, hopefully having a little bit of a decent experience, right? How many of you had students that don't enjoy the course that they're in with you, and it's kind of a pain to kind of get going, right? So then we got to figure out, well, why is your experience not very fun or enjoyable? What can we do? And these are just some skills that I think all of us really do have, okay? But in order to facilitate, we got to be empathetic, have expertise, be a little enthusiastic. Now what you want to do is you want to take 2, you want to divide it by 4, and then add it to 7. That would be very fun, right? Or, okay, what's your idea behind how you're actually going to solve this fraction or this equation? What are you going to do? Well, I know that I should do, okay, good. Take that idea and move it forward from there. What would be the next logical step? A little bit more exciting, right? Notice how the energy just changed? I got really excited, animated, a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden the energy got up. When I did the previous one, Einstein it, right? And all of a sudden just, okay? So we want to make sure that enthusiasm is actually the more important thing in my opinion. Because if you can keep the energy up, you can keep the excitement going, you can keep people happy, they're going to be more involved, period. That's who they are. Okay? You bring out who they are. Be clear, okay? Language, organization, that power of language, so important. Okay, make sure we're using the right one. And expectancy. We do have to have an expectation for our students. No, you can't just come in here and sit and play on your phone. I'm sorry, that doesn't qualify as being a learner. Okay, you're just wasting time. Okay, process versus content. We're going to go through this one pretty quick, actually. Content model, just traditional education. Okay, it's the way that we're used to it. We create everything, we do everything, we set it up, we make sure that they go through it the right way, and they do it because we tell them to do it. Now, obviously, you have to have a little bit of that. There has to be some structure because there has to be some guidelines. But if we shift it into more of a process model, not so much content. Content's going to be in there. I mean, that's where you're looking at your step 5 here. You're formulating program objectives. That's your content. You got to have it. But notice there's 4 steps before that, before you even get to content. So it's not just come in, sit down, start reading the book, and let's go. It's let's prepare them. Let's figure it out. Let's give them this idea. Remember, most of them are coming from a pedagogical nature. They're dependent. They don't know what to do. And so we've got to actually teach them how to learn in some cases. You've got to move them from a dependent learner to an independent learner. Teacher-directed versus self-directed, right? And you got to teach them that. Which is like, you should know this. Well, if they knew it, then they would know it. Then you wouldn't have to teach it because they would already know it. But if they don't know it, then you have to teach it because they don't know it. You need to know it now. Right? That establishing climate of conducive learning. Okay? That's pretty important. Look at this classroom. How can when you look at it, how conducive to learning is it really? Look how you're all facing. Everybody's facing forward. Okay? You can't really communicate with each other because you have to turn this way, right? Everybody's this way. Now, let's look if we rearrange this and put people into groups and tables. What just happened with the environment? Think about it for a second. Say again?
So now we're all going to talk to each other.
Yeah, you're going to talk to each other, but your experiences now can transfer, right? Think about your programs. You have someone who's been in the program for a while. They have experience in the industry, and you have a newbie coming in who's from high school. Who better to have them talk to than the person that is also in the class who has the experiences versus us who says, hey, I'm the teacher, let me tell you all about this cool stuff. Right? So it kind of creates, you gotta look at how the climate is set up in that environment. I'm actually gonna skip forward to this real quick. I'm not gonna really hit this one hard, but you can kind of see if you look through that, you've got the Andragogy approach, the pedagogical approach, and the different elements, kind of the differences between the two in here. Okay, so when you're setting up your program, you're talking with people, which category you fall in, right? I mean, is the planning completely by you, or are you having a discussion, kind of give an idea of, okay, I decided to move through your SDR. Or are you saying, on Tuesday, you better be done with this, right? It's just a little different of a conversation. Not much, but enough. Okay, went through that. Okay, yeah, so that's kind of what I was talking about, that, the physical environment, the spacing, right? Notice this is what I call this setup, what is the military style setup. Everybody in rows, face forward, listen. How many of you feel like you're back in 3rd grade? Yeah, you really do, right? Because that's the way it was run. So again, thinking about that, you come in, you sit down, you get this 3rd grade perception of where this is going to be like, and then all of a sudden, we go back to what our biases tell us we should do and how we should perform in a situation that is set up like this. So does it inhibit the learning or does it shape the learning? Which direction does it go? Okay, this is just that mutual planning. You can just look at this. It's just the adult learning happens when you're kind of bouncing between these. They're creating, they're implementing, evaluating, what do they need, and all of that kind of works together. Okay, it's a little hard to read. I couldn't really get it to be any more clear, so I apologize about that. Okay, this one, underlying competencies versus behavior. Look forward here for a second. Yeah. So competencies versus behavior. Which is more important, your competency or the behavior? What do you think?
The combination of the two.
Combination. I'm gonna agree with that. What if you have really good competency, but your behavior from learning is really cool? So let's say you get 3/4, like you take the test and it shows you're pretty much done with everything except for one module. But their learning behavior is not conducive to actually progressing. Now what? Now what are you dealing with? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
It seems like a lot of our students who have open entry, self-directed, they get so far and where they go.
They just disappear, right? And that might be more of a human thing. Like they're just gung-ho about it for a little while, and all of a sudden, they got far enough. Okay? What if you have really good learning behavior, self-directed, you're like, yeah, I'm doing this, I got it, I don't want to talk to the instructor, but you got a low competency. Is that easy to work with? Not easy to work with? Who would you prefer? For someone with a good learning behavior, someone who's willing to grow and learn, and be involved, but who may not know a lot, versus someone who knows a lot but doesn't want to do anything. Right? So when you have the student who knows a lot, who really just behaviorally is like, I just don't want to, why do I have to do this? We get it in math a lot. Why do I have to do this? I'm sure you guys get it too. And that's behavior, more of a behavior thing. And then the discrepancy identification, just learning gaps, that kind of goes back to that competency. How do you identify that in an effective way? Okay, and then have that conversation with the students so that they can feel like they're involved with their learning. Okay, with content, just, you guys have that one. Contingencies of reinforcement, I always like this one. The chocolate that I put out as a quick thank you. How many of you felt when I came in, just as a little reinforcer, you felt like, oh, yeah, at least you thought about us. Yeah, chocolate, thanks. Right, it's little things. Kind of like what Kurt was talking about yesterday when we just say, hey, way to go to pass that test. It's a small reinforcer, but they stay because the way they feel is contingent upon what we do for them, right? And we make them feel like they're involved and that they have a piece, they have a place. And what's really great about this part actually is in our environment, we don't really have to worry too heavily on this because those organic stages of development, the students actually create as they go. They're moving themselves through that program, okay? Which is really kind of cool. So we can help them through those organic stages of development. And then we just have to provide them the right environment, the support environment for that. Okay, this one, go ahead and read those definitions real fast. Which learner are you? Are you a goal-oriented learner? So this is on the next page. Are you an activity-oriented learner? Or are you a learning-oriented learner? We'll be done in about 3 to 4 minutes. Circle the one that you think you are. Which one do you think you're the most? But yes, you could be all three, absolutely. You could have elements in each one. Yeah. Yeah, so which one do you think you're the most? Okay. Most everybody looks like they're done. A few people are finishing up. So let's go. How many of you sort of more goal-oriented as it were? Just objectives, you just want to get through it. Okay, cool. How many of you are the activity-oriented learner? You get involved. Okay, cool. How many are the learner-oriented learner? Okay, cool. I'm on the learner-oriented learner side. So now, take this in a new context. We talked about growth stages of development. We talked about their readiness to learn. Are they low support, low direction, high support, high direction? All those different elements, and now what type of learner are they? Because what if you're a learner, so I'm a learner-oriented learner, learning-oriented learner. Think about it for a second. I do things because I like to learn things. but Rex does things because he likes to be involved in things. Activity-based. Now what happens? Disconnect, right? On the learning side, how I create my own internal change to learn something new is now different than the way Rex would have set up something, his content, for a learning change. Okay, so can you kind of see how, as we get more and more into this adult learning content and concepts, can you start seeing the complexities behind it and why sometimes the reason some of our students might exit our program might not be because of why we think it might be because of something totally different. Which goes back to what Jim was saying yesterday about retention. So if we can change some of this stuff and understand more of what our students are doing on an andragogical level, process level, potential for being able to retain some of our students a little more. Okay? Because now they're involved and they're the ones in charge. Last thing I wanted to let you guys know is on the next page, and because I'm going to be finished up here, the Andragogy and practice model. If you guys want to read through those, it's just some case studies, and you can look at the, You can look and see how they, for the Adult Basic Education Program, how they have taken this idea of andragogy here, dived it into individual and situational differences, and then into goals and purposes for learning. Okay? Look at those case studies, because we are out of time. But look at those case studies and see, okay, how can you go through this on your own program? Here, I've given you a blank sheet. How do you go through that on your own program and figure out where everything resides, where does everything sit? Okay? What type of student do you have coming in, that kind of thing. And finally, you can skip that. Understand yourself. At the very back is an actual learning style inventory. Figure out who you are. Are you more andragogical in nature or are you more pedagogical in nature? Neither is right or wrong. It is just simply understand yourself a little bit more so you understand why you set your program up the way you set your program up, and is it conducive to the type of student that you're bringing in based upon the framework of adult learning. And that is it.